Hi, welcome to the Hot Seat with Drug Free Dixon Coalition. I am Allison Avalon, and today we have a very special guest with Sheriff Eads. Thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have 5 wings, 5 burning questions, and 1 meal to remember. So we're excited to get to know you, and we appreciate your partnership with Drug Free Dixon Coalition and everything that you do for the community. So we're gonna start off easy. So this is the first one. Yes, remember where it was in the lineup?
Right here.
Yes, I believe so too. All right, so the first question is, what is your favorite local Dixon County restaurant? And what is your go-to order? Now go ahead and take a bite and then respond. Cocoa spice.
That one's good, not super hot. Shoot, that's a tough one. I love to eat. I'd say for Asian food, I like the King Delicious out at the moment. That's my favorite takeout. I love Jonas Pizza, and particularly their Jonas sub. It's a warm sub. The warm sub, it's got several different kinds of meat on it, and cheese, and warm dressing. So
nice. That sounds really good.
That would be 2 of my go-tos. For buffet style, I love the Manor.
You're giving me some good ideas. These are all places I have never tried.
Yeah, the Manor is a buffet style. Growing up around here, they have, with hands down, and some people probably be grossed out by this. I don't know. One of my favorite things there is their fried chicken gizzards.
Oh, yes, that would be.
It's a muscle tissue, so it's a little bit different.
Is it like tough? How was the texture like?
They can be really tough. Huck's has a pretty good fried chicken gizzard. It's different from liver. So the gizzard is primarily, if I'm understanding right, it's like in the crawl or when they eat a hard seed, that's the muscle that squeezes that and it breaks the grain down to where it can go into the stomach. So it's not really an organ, it's a member of the muscle tissue, and it kind of has a unique flavor, and that's one of my things. But they've got a lot of good stuff on their catfish. The barbecue's good. Just country cooking, white
I was going to say, sounds very country.
It is. It's your typical buffet style. So
nice. Well, thank you. Those are some good suggestions. All right, so now we're going to get into a little more hard-hitting questions. And feel free.
I'm just going to. I think it's leaking a little bit.
You got yourself a fish.
Yeah, give me that. I forgot this.
Oh gosh.
This is good chocolate milk too.
Yeah.
And one of my favorites.
Okay, so for the next question, what is one thing about being sheriff that might surprise people to learn? Go ahead and take a bite.
Take a bite. Next round. Here we go.
This one is a ghost pepper wing sauce. That was good.
Yep, that's.
Yep.
My allergies were acting up, but I think I'm gonna be cured after this. We'll take one more bite.
It does taste good. It has good flavor.
It has a good, smooth, kind of a slow burn.
So, what is one thing about being sheriff that you think people would be surprised to learn?
Well, one of the many different things that comes across your desk, you end up learning a lot about budgets, purchasing rules, regulations, when dealing with that, HR stuff. Yeah,
I would not have thought about the sheriff being involved in HR stuff.
Yeah, it's most of the primary duties are. That was sticking with me. Right there. Anyway, sort of administrative side, there's a lot of moving parts, which not just knowing how to apply the law, but there's about 160 employees between patrol deputies working at the courthouse, school resource deputies, corrections deputies. So we got a jail that can hold up to 397 people. something's always breaking,
Yes.
and so learning all of that, being sheriff as sort of the CEO and other stuff, often involved a lot with charitable organizations, the coalition. So there's that extra stuff like this afternoon at 4:30. There's the domestic violence coalition meeting quarterly. And there's a lot of things to do on the weekends. If there's the old timers days going on, the fair, spring fling.
So you're always busy.
Always, yeah. It's a lot of weekend work.
A lot of weekend.
And if you don't like people, this is not the job to have. I'm just gonna tell you.
Well, that's a great segue to my next question, which would be, if you could swap jobs with anybody in the county, who would you swap jobs with? It could be a specific person or industry. Like, what else do you think that you would enjoy? Go ahead and take a bite.
This one's gonna be, this one, I believe.
Yes, so this one is a fire roasted garlic habanero.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yep. I gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, this one's spicier though.
Mm-hmm. Well, this one's a little smoother. This one kind of just.
It's like a pepper. Yeah.
Very peppery.
Mm-hmm. Hey, did you guys get pepper spray when you went through the academy?
Well, yes, when we, I'm so low when we didn't really use chemical weapons other than they had a whole tear gas form.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't use that in '87, and I think about 1990, 91, we started using the pepper spray. It's a lot. It's all natural. It's just Caspian oil.
Mm-hmm.
And doesn't have any long-term side effects typically, but yes. And I was on midnights as a sergeant, and we got sprayed early that morning because we had experience, we deconned, and I went home and went straight to bed.
Yeah.
And got up that afternoon about 2:30, and my oldest daughter Danielle was in second or third grade of kindergarten. And so we lived close to school, and there's a small hill where we were living. It was, I believe it was in the hot fall. And so I'm like, go along to school and pick her up. Bad idea. I started sweating.
Oh no! Did it go back
And it reactivated. Not as bad as slamming everything shut, but I showed up at the school in tears.
Oh my gosh!
So,
oh my gosh!
Funny story about that.
My husband went through the police academy years ago, and he described it as having gravel in your eyes that just won't. You can't wash it out. It just won't go away.
Yeah, and interesting. They had us make our own decontamination. Of course, if you have to utilize it in the field, as soon as the suspect is under control, cuffed, and secure, then you have to decon or decontaminate. What they had us do is took baby shampoo and sugar, mix the two together.
Huh.
And the baby shampoo suspended the sugar, melted sugar, the molecules adhere to the pepper oil.
Interesting.
That's what I was told. You can fact check me, but that's what I was told.
Never heard of that. That's interesting.
If it's not a fact, I was lied to. So.
Well, going back to my question, if you could swap jobs with one person in the county or one industry, what do you think you would be a good fit at? When your share comes to an end.
I don't know. I think I like to do something that was community outreach oriented, still allowing to contribute to the community, continue to keep the contacts with the other people. So I don't know, maybe something a nonprofit will.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
That would be fun because raising money can be difficult sometimes.
Yes.
I understand it's a struggle.
Yes.
This is almost a struggle. I am sweating. I have a fire truck with firemen to save me. It's parked across the street.
You'll make it, I promise, but it is. Yeah, I mean, you're halfway through. You're doing pretty good. I've seen cheers at this point, so you're doing well. Well, speaking of raising money, that kind of leads me also into my next question. I heard a story that when you were campaigning, I believe it was this last election, you took someone with you to go campaigning, and this person wore your competitor's T-shirt. Is that true?
That is a true story.
So I would love to know. I thought that was such an interesting story that I'd heard, because I really thought it highlighted your character. That it didn't matter, you were still just bringing along this person. So I'm interested to hear kind of what your thoughts were when you saw the shirt, and then just how you went along with that.
Okay.
And go ahead and take a bite. Now this is the one I haven't tried. This one
is
yet.
the Buc-ee's.
The peach, yeah,
The
Buc-ee's.
peach. Okay.
That's not so bad. That was actually kind of a little reprieve from the spice.
I believe it was.
All right.
Unless it's like something that sneak up on you.
I might have to switch that one in the order. That's not that bad at all. That's good. Give you a second to breathe before we get to the last one.
So that was actually the first election in 20.
Okay.
And because I spent 19 years here, left for Bellmead for 14 years. And when Sheriff Eads retired, there was an open seat. And so it's like you're really, not like you're necessarily running against these other people. You're just saying, hey, pick me, here's my line. And so I met this individual who's pretty well known around town. And he started to go out and help me. And we put up some yard signs and people. And so we were going to put up a couple of yard signs. And I didn't take a whole lot of time off from Bellmead. I'd take half days. So I told this individual, I said, look, I'll pick you up. He was going to be helping somebody clean a fence row out. And so I was going to meet him in Charlotte at the Court Square, which I did. And he hops out of that truck, and I talked to the guy for a minute, and he hops in my truck. We were out in the old 67, which was my kind of campaign vehicle.
Okay.
And he has on my competitors. One of my competitors. There was 5 of us in there. And I was like, I said, hey, what's up? And he goes, and I'm kind of looking at him, and he looks at me, and he's like, oh, man. He said, he said, we can run home. And I said, no, it's all right. He goes, you want me to turn it inside out? And I said, no.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem because, it was a pretty positive campaign. It was like, you may not be decided yet. And so, anyway, he took me to our first stop, and he introduced me to the fella, and we talked back and forth, and he kind of got a kick out of it. And he was like, "You know him?" I said, "No." I can't carry him around shirtless.
Yeah, right.
And I go, it would have felt petty for me to tell him to turn it inside out. And he's a good kid. He just sometimes he doesn't think things all the way through. And so to him, it was no big deal. So I was like, you're taking time to introduce me to some people that I did a lot of porch visits. COVID was on, so it was interesting. The campaign.
Yeah.
I had all of my events, meet and greets were outdoors, and a friend of mine that gave me I call it the wiggy wagon. We do hot dogs and had a hot dog roller in it. So we do
that's so cool.
real simple. We have a few drinks iced down, and you get a hot dog and a bag of chips.
Yeah.
And so those were real popular. But yes, that is a true story.
That's awesome. When I heard that, that story was actually shared to me by Matthew Hyatt. And I just thought it matched what I know of you and like the character that you have. And I really thought that was really great. Because I don't think that everybody would have handled it that way. I don't think everybody would have been okay with him wearing a shirt, or maybe there would have been some kind of attitude. I don't
Tension.
Yeah. And I love that you're like, whatever, this is right.
Let's roll, yeah.
I think that, and it speaks to you again as a people person as well, and really to be able to embrace the whole community, by doing that. I think that's awesome. So I was curious to hear it from you, out of the horse's mouth.
Yes.
All right, now I will warn you, we are on believe it or not, we're already done. This is our last question. I will tell you, this one is quite spicy, okay? It is going to stick with you for a bit, so make sure you got your chocolate drink ready.
Yes.
Chocolate drink, that's what I
Let's
call
do
it.
it. I think I'll have a
Yeah.
mixed drink. We're gonna do mixed drinks on this program, y'all.
You're gonna love
So
it.
tell everybody, you wanna watch this show. Yeah, I think I can handle some more milk here.
Yeah, hopefully you're not lactose intolerant, because this could be.
It's to find out.
Yeah, we know.
If it is, it's gonna be really bad because I'm sure it's gonna burn as bad coming up. As it
Yep,
will bad.
that is right. I've received several text messages after this show has ended. Okay, so we are starting a program. Dirk Friedrichs and I'll be facilitating it in the jail starting next week, which is MRT. It's moral recognition training, and basically what it does is it provides life skills for inmates as they are getting ready to exit the jail. It focuses on accountability, it focuses on goals, responsibility, decision making, and that was a conversation that you were in when we were kind of talking about doing it at the jail. And it seemed like it was something that you were really behind and passionate about. So I guess my question would be, why are programs like that important in our community, including in our jail? And, you know, how does that kind of align with your vision for Dixon County and just public health in general? Because it really is a public health issue,
It
right?
is.
So go ahead and take a bite.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Cheers.
Cheers. There it comes. Don't have a heart attack.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
Oh, this one has staying power. Don't worry if you cry.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Now the secret brain can actually think of the response. Your mouth can work.
Oh no. I had a really good response. Now
I swear. Oh my gosh. Why do I do this to myself?
Mm.
I think I got myself worse this time than ever before.
Whew.
Mm.
I have no bite chicken.
I was taking another bite of it. I was like, what?
You can feel it in your ears.
This is where the Go-Gurt really helps.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, I'm crying.
Mm. So, we do really appreciate Allison helping us with that program. Mm.
Oh, I got myself too hard on this one.
Mm.
We call this trauma bonding.
Yes, believe me, this will bond you.
Mm. I'm telling you, the Go-Gurt.
Yes, so I'll try to get from there. You'll probably when I talk with yogurt in my mouth. So, the thing that she is talking about facilitating. It is in the community's best interest to not eat that hot sauce, but liquid fire right there.
Yep.
I don't know if the Cajun can handle that.
It's called the bomb insanity, and it is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's last.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you would never get off the ground talking first. So, for the last few years, I've always been a supporter of programs that can reduce recidivism.
Uh-huh.
Some people would say, hey, most of the people that are in the county jail are not hardened criminals. They're there because of probably substance addiction that got out of hand, caused them to make some bad choices. It's the moral thing to do, it's the right thing to do, you know, everybody's fine with locking them up, throw away the key until it's their son or daughter,
That's right.
uncle, mother, best friend. And so what we find is folks, if they do their time and they just walk off their hill and have any resources, training, direction, there's a lot of, I'm not sure if there's not a family in this country that's not dysfunctional in some way.
Absolutely. I agree.
So ain't nobody judging anybody,
No.
but
People need help.
yeah, and
That's okay.
and you know, and a lot of these folks have burned a lot of bridges with their family who's tried to help, and often families don't know how to help. You know,
They don't have the tools, or it's generational trauma that's been passed down.
Yeah, because
Or funds for resources.
Right.
Yeah, there's lots of barriers really to help.
yeah, you know, there's a thing, I don't get off topic, there's a thing called ACEs, which is adverse childhood trauma. Even if a person grew up in a fairly stable home, people can get traumatized sometimes and not even know it.
Absolutely.
For whatever reason. So identifying that, I'm just going to tell you, it's cheaper to treat than it is to incarcerate.
Yeah.
And I should say less expensive, because, like I said, it opened 397 bed facility. Well, we're at 80% capacity. The state of Tennessee considers it overcrowded. If you get overcrowded, you can lose your certification, and you have to take your prisoners and pay other counties out, which is triple what it costs to do it yourself.
Yes.
To build on, it's over $1,000 a square foot.
Wow.
And so
You need to find ways to make sure that you're turning from people and coming back.
but the goal is
Is it starting to go away yet?
no. No,
Mine's
y'all see
really
it,
subtle.
look here, my eyes. Who said I didn't have feelings? Okay.
Mine is finally settled, but it's still lingering. It's lingering.
But the goal is through good programs while they're there, a captive audience. Some of them can get credit and have a shortened sentence a little bit. It's not anything drastic, but
Yeah.
we want to make sure if they dropped out of school and they don't have a GED, they get a GED right there. They go through this workbook that Allison's talked about. I've seen programs, it works.
It does work.
Is it 100%? There's nothing 100%. But they do have a lot of success with it in other places. And so the goal is as we prepare for their release, we're training them some skills. I've actually went and sat through the session with a ladies group. They for ladies in, they through a ladies group, and they have really got some good numbers. The goal is this is part of them learning their lesson.
Yes.
If society wants to look at somebody and say, well, you need to learn your lesson, this is an intricate part of giving them skill set so they can get their life back, okay? Through the MRT program, it's not just, it's not necessarily an addiction program, but it's tied in with that. But we've got a lot of resources here at Dixon. Those people come out, they go into a sober living, they keep doing their therapy, they get any fines and court costs paid off while they're there. They develop a skill, they experience success. That raises their self-confidence and their self-worth.
That's right.
Because a lot of these people feel worthless.
Absolutely.
You know, you think their family's disappointed, but I've heard a lot of them, that I've talked to say, look, I thought I could do it by myself, but I can't. So.
And that's anybody, right? I think we all heard that lesson at some point that you need help.
And then you have to trust people. And a lot of people that trusted them, the trust was broke, but over time it gives them the ability to rebuild those bridges. Okay. they become a much healthier person. The community gets healthier, the community gets safer,
That's right.
okay? And the jail population is going down.
That's right.
And so we're traveling next week, Chief Hayes and I, to Atlanta. We've been to Fairfax, Virginia. We rode in a grant. And we tentatively have the grant, but we have to go through grant training.
Mhm.
And it's only $100,000 grant, but that's $100,000 local tax people are not on the hook for.
That's right.
My goal, so I don't have a secret plan, I share it with everybody every chance I get. That should open us up to maybe $100,000 worth of grants. And I know everybody hears a lot about grants, but a lot of grants. I get macaroni art,
Mhm.
okay? Does that really, the 2.5 million could have been spent better on programs
Yes.
versus crazy stuff. And for the most part, what we're seeing, a lot of your public safety funding is probably anything that gets frozen is being unfrozen. Once they've determined it's a legitimate grant, it's getting back to the community. But back to my key point was this person, instead of being in jail or being a tax user, they get their life back. They become a taxpayer, a contributor. Okay. Community safer, it's healthier, they get their life back. And what I hope to do is as we continue to get these grant fundings and get our programs up, I'd really like to have a case manager in there.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I've got a programs director, but she's just coordinating and doing everything she can. We may be able to get a second person in there to help her, but still need a professional case manager. And you say, well, okay, not all grants continue to renew, I get that. But if we could get 2 or 3 years of data, show that we've reduced our recidivism, we've kept our population under control, then it becomes simple economics.
That's right. That's right.
I need $400,000 a year. I ask the commissioners to run these programs. And I can show, hey, we're not having to build a jail, which is less expensive. $400,000 a year to impact and get our community healthier and happier and safer.
Yes, absolutely.
Or do we make $1 million a year mortgage payment for 40 years on a jail expansion?
Yeah.
And having to hire more deputies to run the thing.
And not doing any of the work that ultimately will lead to, again, like you were saying, healthier, safer communities. Yeah. And I always say, people can't do better until they know better.
Exactly.
And just being given the opportunity, and a lot of the behaviors that you're seeing that we have led people to being in the county jail are trauma responses. Whether it's the way that they lash out or they act out or the way that they think they're protecting themselves,
right.
Or the skills or lack thereof,
right.
That were passed down. I've done this MRT program. I ran it for 5 years in the past, and I have seen it work tremendously well. It is one of those things that I think really empowers people. It's hard.
It's work.
It's hard. Because one of the first step is accountability. And that is one of the hardest things for people, to be able to say, I take responsibility for my part.
I can't blame this bad decision on anybody else other than myself.
Yeah, because that feels unsafe. Because especially if they grew up in an environment where a mistake was punished, maybe with physical abuse or verbal abuse or neglect or whatever it may be. So then when you're asking someone who's had that history to take responsibility for an action, every wall is going to go up, and they're going to say, absolutely not, this was that person's fault, because they're, and that makes sense. It's about internal.
They feel victimized, and there's some parts of our culture that I feel like we went through a period where that was maybe over celebrated, being a victim. And I'm no psychologist, but it takes a lot of work, really, to be a decent human being.
Yes.
And have control of your life and self-control.
Yes.
On a lot of stuff, where you're like, okay, do I go buy $500 worth of drugs, or do I pay the rent or the mortgage?
And I think a lot of that ties into what you're saying also, as far as having that self-worth. and understanding what you want for your life, what type of character and qualities you believe you have.
You gotta care about yourself.
Yeah, the standard you hold yourself
Right.
to will also make a big impact on the decisions that you're making
Right.
for yourself. And that's what programs like this and other programs you're doing in the jail.
I think it really impacts people, helps them from throwing the towel. You get hopelessness, maybe they're doing good for a little bit, something happens, and because their self-worth is low, they're like, who cares?
Yeah.
They're throwing a towel. This is a bunch of horse crap and walking out, and I'm just going to go back and numb myself.
Yep.
And and then that leads to criminal activity.
Yep. Once upon a time when I was working with being involved youth, I would have to do intakes for them to come into the program. And most of the time, I had a file in front of me. I knew what they were on probation for. I knew when they were in juvenile hall. I knew everything. And they would sit across from me, and most of the time they would lie in my face. Are you gang involved? No. Did you do this? No. And I recall my coworker saying, like, well, why are you letting them in the program? They're lying to you. And I said, because they still have something to protect. They're lying to me because they still have hope. The person that stands like, yep, I did it, and I don't care, that person is going to be a lot harder for me to work with than the person who's still trying to protect themselves. There's something that person still wants to protect. I'm not saying lying is good, but it was an indicator of you have things you're doing to protect yourself. And I'm willing to bet some of the other decisions you made were because you think you are protecting yourself. You're not. You're making it much worse. But you don't know that yet, and we're going to teach you that.
And when you get down and break it down into modules and bits, it's a little clearer to understand, because I understand people are complicated. But using basic therapeutic things to break down, identify, it can help give them the skill set and the confidence to say, okay, enough's enough. I'm coming back here, and that's the goal.
Yeah, that's right.
But you just can't lock people up for a weekend.
You can't. Punishment.
You can't punish it out of them.
You can't. Part of programs like this also teaches discipline, and that's really just self-discipline as well. So I love it. We're getting to do it in the jail, and I look forward to getting that going.
And the burn, if you're wondering, is still barely there, but I can tolerate.
You didn't have a heart attack. You didn't have a stroke.
No,
you didn't fall over.
I didn't have to call my own.
You didn't have snot. Matthew Hyatt. Sorry, Matt. Snot everywhere.
I know. I did. I had a little bit.
I had a little too. Last one I was drooling. Yeah, that was rough. I was really scared of my eyes. But anyways, Sheriff Eads, we appreciate you coming and doing the hot seat today.
Absolutely.
And embarking on this journey.
This is interesting. I kind of forgot about it. Was like walked in and he said chicken. That's right.
What am I getting myself into? Well, like I said, we're really trying to highlight our partners and the people that we have relationships with, and we're so grateful for.
This is a fun way to do it.
It is a fun way, and we're so grateful for our partnerships with the sheriff department and everything that you all do in the community. You're very active, keeping it safe, keeping it a friendly, healthy environment.
I appreciate what y'all do with the coalition. It's they say what an ounce of prevention, what a pound of cure. So they're out trying to get the message out. They do a lot of things that people don't know about.
We do.
So I would encourage you to get on here and do a little research on our drug-free coalition, see what they have out there for not just youth, but adults.
Yeah, and if you ever need something instead of tasers, you can just use this.
Yeah.
Pepper spray, just give them some of this. And
Yes.
they'll get right in line.
Look, folks, if one of my deputies offers you a chicken nugget, just say no.
Just say no. I will thank you so much.
Ooh, that was fun.